Hello again, everybody. This is Jay, and welcome to my review of Netrunner 13.06, codenamed Enigma. Now, I have done a review of this distribution in the past, but unfortunately, I wasn't really very impressed by it. But since then, a new version has been released, this one, and I've received several comments from you guys on my channel asking me to take a look at the latest version of this distribution, and I've decided to give it a go, and here it is. Here is Netrunner 13.06. Now, just like the previous release, there is a lot of polish here. Netrunner is not simply just Ubuntu with KDE slapped on it and then named Netrunner. There is a lot of customizations everywhere, from the boot splash, the login screen, and it's pretty clear here from the wallpaper. This is a wallpaper that is not like anything I've ever seen in a Linux distribution before. I think it's actually pretty awesome, so it's a nice touch. And there's nice touches everywhere. Everything looks great as far as the artwork is concerned. But the only exception, in my opinion, is the wallpaper that's in the background of the login screen. I'm not a fan of that at all in this release. It's so busy that it took me a minute to figure, or not quite a minute, but it took me a little bit to figure out where to type my password, because there's so much going on in the wallpaper graphic behind the login screen that it's just way too busy, and I didn't like that at all. But that's my only complaint when it comes to the graphics. I'm very glad that the developers of this release decided to put a lot of polish into it. Now, a quick note about the installation. I usually like to talk about that quickly in most of my reviews. The installation process in Netrunner couldn't possibly be easier. It's basically exactly the same as Kubuntu, so if you've ever installed that, then you know exactly what to expect here. In my opinion, it's pretty much flawless. I can't imagine that any of you guys would have any problems installing this release. It's pretty straightforward, and also it installs pretty quickly as well. And in no time, you're in the default desktop and you're ready to get going. So let's take a look at the default applications as we normally do in my reviews. So here we have the kickoff menu, but it's actually set up as the classic mode, which you can do in KDE, and it is a pretty nice setup, to say the least. Probably one I would have picked, or thought about picking anyway. So under applications, under graphics, for image editing we have GIMP, great choice. For the image viewer, GwenView, which is the default for KDE, also a great choice. And then Chemoso, I haven't really used that one all that often, so I can't really speak about that. But then we have K-Snapshot, Scanlight, a number of other programs here. Definitely great choices. So if you are into image editing or photography, you definitely have a good set of applications here to get you started. Now, under Internet, we have Firefox as our default web browser, Pigeon for chatting, also Telepathy for chatting as well. I'm not sure why they decided to include two of them. We have Thunderbird for our email client, which is also a good choice, but we have Contact as well for personal information management. And FileZilla is a great FTP client. A lot of these programs are cross-platform, which is a nice touch. Under multimedia, we have VLC as the default video player. Great choice there. VLC plays pretty much everything you throw at it. Tomahawk for the music player, which is interesting because in my previous review I went over Zorin, the latest version of Zorin, and I made the mention that pretty much every KDE distribution ships with Amarok by default. I guess I was just proven wrong because I don't see Amarok here, but I see Tomahawk, which I didn't notice until now, to be honest, but maybe I'll check that one out and give you a more informed review of that. But Record My Desktop, of course, is what I'm using to record this video, so ignore that. Then under Office, we have LibreOffice, which is standard fare. That's pretty much a requirement in Linux nowadays. Definitely a great piece of software. Then over here under System, we have various system configuration utilities. The Synaptic Package Manager, which is interesting because it is a GTK based program, but it's here in a KDE distribution, which uses the Qt toolkit instead of GTK. So interesting to see that there. But we also have the Muon package manager, which is basically the KDE equivalent of Synaptic. So I'm not quite sure why that's there. So anyway, those are the main applications. Sure, there's more, but those are the noteworthy ones. Now we also have some web apps here as well. And I think in the last review I took a look at Cut the Rope. I don't remember if I put that in the review, but I remember playing around with that. I didn't get a chance to play with it again in this release, but I did get a chance to check out the Google Calendar and Google Mail and Facebook as well. Now here we have web accounts on the desktop. That's something that I was critical of in the past review because I don't remember if the web accounts in that version worked at all or if it was just hit or miss. But in this release, at least, web accounts is very hit or miss. For example, I set up my Facebook account, and once I did that, here the telepathy IM program immediately found all my Facebook contacts after I set them up here in web accounts. So that automatically set up my my instant messenger program for that purpose, which is awesome. That worked out without a problem. But unfortunately, where web accounts fails is Google. Now, I set up my Google account. It asked for permission to access things like calendar, email, and whatnot. But Netrunner did nothing with any of that, because when I go here to web apps, for example, and clicked on any Google app, it basically asked me to log in again. So why did I put in my information here just to have to put it again or input it again for the web apps, for the Google applications? I'm not quite sure why that is. If I have to log in twice, why not just open Firefox and log in there, because it'd actually be fewer steps. So just like the previous version, I am critical of the web accounts in this release. It's hit or miss, and something that I think if they can't get done right, they should just remove it until they perfect it and then add it back later, because it just doesn't work right at all. So another thing that I was critical of in my previous review was the fact that everything in Netrunner is huge. I mean, look at these icons, 48-point icons by default. Yes, you can change them, but that's not all. If I open up my home folder here, you'll see that even here, all of my icons are huge. The window border is extremely huge. And because everything is so large, and I mean everything, the text, the icons, the window borders, I'm losing a great deal of screen real estate here for no good reason whatsoever. I'm not sure why Netrunner insists that everything has to be ginormous. To me, it looks terrible. And now, to be fair, in KDE, you can actually go into the system settings and you can, configure everything and lower it. But one of the problems with KDE is that there's no one place to configure all of the settings. You basically have to go into 2 or 3 different individual settings programs to find all the settings to customize your look. So that's one of the things I don't like about KDE, and to have to go and play around with Netrunner to try to figure out how to make everything a reasonable size. That's not my idea of fun. So I would hope that in the future they would shrink this down and make it more manageable. So unfortunately, in my previous release, I didn't find a whole lot good to say about Netrunner. And unfortunately, in this version of Netrunner, I don't really see that they fixed any of the problems that I found in the original review that I've done. So I can't recommend this to basically anyone. Now, I understand that Netrunner has had a pretty decent following in my YouTube channel. A lot of you guys have commented that you guys love this release and all that, and I appreciate that. I guess every distribution has its audience, but the fact is there are plenty of KDE distributions out there. We have Linux Mint KDE, we have Kubuntu for those of you that like a more bare bones KDE distribution. We also have Solid K, which I just reviewed that one recently. So with all these really good distributions that have KDE as its default desktop, where does Netrunner fit in? I mean, it doesn't really fit in at all because, in my opinion, Netrunner offers literally nothing that's worthwhile against all the other distributions or KDE distributions that already do it better. So, and to top it all off, I took a look at the community. And with this release, or excuse me, with this distribution, the community is extremely puny. I mean, for example, I looked at the general discussion section of their forums, and it hasn't had a single post for a few days. And I think a couple of their main forums have like 90 something posts total, not just in the past month, but ever. So. When it comes down to beginners, I always recommend that you choose a distribution with a very big community, because that way, if you need help, you have a greater chance that there's a volunteer there that might want to help you out. But with Netrunner, with a community being so minuscule, you automatically lose that benefit. Now, to be fair, I always recommend in this case, and I know I might sound like a scratched record or something, but if this is your distribution of choice, by all means, join the community, help out, and make it bigger. But as it stands today, the Linux Mint community, for example, is much, much larger, and their distribution, in my opinion, is way better because it also has polish, just like Netrunner. It doesn't have, these ginormous icons and window borders. It doesn't lead you off to think that you have something awesome like web accounts that actually doesn't work at all, with the exception that I've tried being Facebook. So, do I recommend this distribution? Absolutely not. I recommend that you avoid this distribution and instead look at Solid K, Linux Mint, KDE, or even Kubuntu if you want something more bare bones. So sorry guys, I have to give this distribution another negative review. However, I will consider reviewing it one more time if you guys leave a comment telling me that they've changed a lot and made a lot of improvements. But until I hear that a lot of improvements have been made, I'm not going to review this distribution ever again, because I'm sure a lot of the things that I'm saying in this review are the exact same things that I've said in the previous review. So, and I was actually considering not reviewing this one at all, but I put a lot of work into preparing a review, so I figured out I might as well just go ahead and just finish it one last time. So anyway, that was my review of Netrunner 13.06. Hopefully the developers get their act together and release a better distribution. Unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, this is not necessarily a bad release as in it's unstable or crashes constantly or any of those types of things. To be fair, it's stable. It just offers nothing over what the other distributions have already been offering for quite some time. So anyway, you guys, thank you for checking out this review. Please subscribe to my channel, and I appreciate